First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
When I was a student at Simpson College during the height of COVID, everything felt uncertain. The isolation was heavy, the injustice was loud, and the longing for belonging was deep. One of the very few bright spots was the way students found connection in digital spaces, especially students of color gathering in the Black Student Union. That virtual space became sacred for them, and then it was violated. A Zoom meeting of the BSU was Zoom bombed by a group of individuals who shouted racial slurs, blasted chainsaw noises, and called for people of color to die. It was violent, it was traumatic, and it was unforgettable. I wasn't in the meeting, but my friends were, and I saw what it looked like to be wounded and to choose healing anyways. Instead of retreating, they organized. They protested, not with retaliation, but with resolve. Our campus canceled classes so the entire community could grieve, witness, and act. That moment taught me something profound. Belonging isn't a feeling, it's a practice, and often it is forged in fire. We gather today in a world that is more than ever calling us to be awake, aware, and deeply human. A world that needs our open eyes, our willing hearts, and our courageous spirits. A world that aches not just for solutions, but for solidarity. Not just for progress, but for presence. A world crying out for people who are willing to sit with the discomfort of injustice and still rise again and again for love. At the center of the Unitarian Universalist faith is love. Not love as a passive sentiment, but love as a force, love as a commitment, and love as active. Love that disrupts, love that heals, and love that compels us forward when we would rather retreat. When we say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we are pledging allegiance to that love, not just in our private lives, but in our public courage. Not only when it's convenient, but especially when it's costly. This is the heart of our spiritual journey, not simply to believe in love, but to live it out, to let it guide not only our prayers, but our practices, to let it shape our choices, especially when they are hard. So, how do we live in that love in a world shaped by bias that we don't even see? Unconscious bias, these automatic hidden judgments that we carry around about people based on race, gender, ability, age, or background, shapes not only how we see the world, but how we treat one another. Those aren't the loud, overt acts of hatred we recognize easily. They are the quiet distortions that move in silence, the assumptions made in a split second, the glances we don't even think twice about, the conversations we avoid, the opportunities never offered, and the harms never named. Bias isn't a flaw in our character. It is a feature of our evolution. Our ancestors needed shortcuts to survive. Thousands of years ago, an ability to quickly assess whether someone or something was threat was vital. But today, those same reflexes can distort how we relate to difference. What was once about survival can now become about exclusion. And that exclusion, when normalized, becomes injustice. It's important to say this clearly. Having unconscious bias doesn't make us bad people. It makes us human people, shaped by systems that have not always been honored the full dignity of every soul. But bias, if left unexamined, becomes harmful and in some cases deadly. Let me be clear, bias is not just personal, it is systematic. Racial bias is visible in countless ways. Black Americans are more than twice as likely to be killed by police as white Americans. That is, armed blacks are twice as likely as armed whites, and unarmed blacks are twice as likely to be killed by police as unarmed whites. Resumes with black-sounding names are 50% less likely to get callbacks. Black patients are prescribed less pain medication than white patients for the same conditions. Gender identity is also enshrined in our policies. In Iowa and across the country, the trans and non-binary youth are being targeted by legislation like Save Girls Sports Bill, which claims to protect fairness but actually denies trans kids the right to participate in community, to play, and to belong. Our laws restrict gender-affirming care, force teachers to out students, and silence conversations about identity in schools. This is not just political. This is spiritual. The cumulative effect of bias is not abstract. It shows up in suicide rates, in poverty, in lack of access to education and opportunity, and it shows up in fear. Our transgender and questioning youth are having a hard time. 72% report persistent sadness of hopelessness, while 5% of cisgender boys have attempted suicide and 11% of cisgender girls have attempted suicide. The proportion of transgender and questioning youth who have attempted suicide is 25%. Bias against transgender people is primary culprit. And of course, racism does real harm. Schools that serve primarily Black or Latino students often lack adequate funding, textbooks, science labs, and support staff, limiting long-term academic and professional opportunities. Black students are suspended or expelled at nearly 3 times the rate of white students, leading to lost classroom time and increased risk of academic disengagement or entry into the school-to-prison pipeline. Black and Indigenous youth who encounter racial harassment are 2 to 3 times more likely to seriously consider or attempt suicide compared to those who do not. I don't know if bias can be reduced, or if it can only be shifted from one form to another. But I do know we can become more accepting and welcoming of difference. We probably cannot live without bias, but we can shift it so that it favors love and compassion, not fear and defense. This work begins in our minds, but it lives in our actions. We are called not just to believe in change, but to practice it. I'll say more about that after our interlude. Bruce, how about something a little bit more expansive? Thank you, Bruce. So, what do we do when we witness harm? What does love look like in the face of injustice? It looks like LGBTQ allies in Madison, Wisconsin at a public high school between classes. There, Taylor, a trans student, was verbally harassed in the hallway. Peers trained in an LGBTQ+ allyship workshop stepped in to de-escalate, provide physical presence, and support their classmate with kindness and clarity. The intervention was calm, grounded, and relational. It looks like First Unitarian Church of Denver, Colorado, where Jeanette Vizgari, a mother of 4 and immigrants' right advocate, sought sanctuary in the church to avoid deportation. The congregation housed her for over 80 days initially and continued advocacy until she was granted a stay of removal. Church members provided 24/7 support, spiritual care, and political pressure. It looks like gentle accompaniment. In Portland, Oregon, a Muslim woman wearing a hijab was being harassed by a man yelling slurs and threatening her in downtown Portland during heightened Islamic-phobic rhetoric nationally. 2 women walking by noticed the situation, and instead of confronting the harasser directly, they approached the women being targeted, made eye contact, and gently said, "Would you like us to walk with you?" The 3 linked arms and walked away together, ignoring the aggressor and offering safety without escalation. Their response centered the woman's autonomy, dignity, and emotional well-being. That's where the practice of bystander intervention becomes spiritual discipline. Because this is not just about good manners or being nice. It is about spiritual integrity, about aligning our values with our actions. It is the choice to speak when it would be easier not to. It is the willingness to interrupt when harm is unfolding in front of us. It is the courage to step in, not always with the perfect words, but with the sincere desire to care, to protect, and to affirm to the humanity of all involved. Bystander intervention means having the courage to pull someone aside after a hateful comment. It means creating safety in real time. It means publicly standing with those who are marginalized. It means refusing to allow discomfort to become an excuse for inaction. And it's not just about the individual moment of action. It's about what happens next. Because intervention, real intervention, isn't just stopping something bad. It's creating the possibility for something good. It's about making space for healing, growth, and solidarity to bloom in the places where harm has tried to root itself. UUs are pretty good at normalizing standing up for each other and at training ourselves to notice and speaking up and supporting and following up and following through. We need to keep doing that and to do more of it. Bystander intervention isn't just about stopping harm. It's about creating belonging. It's about choosing love when hate tries to divide us. It's about stepping in, not standing by. It's about moving together even when the road is uncertain. Our faith does not ask perfection of us. It asks participation. It asks for presence. It asks for us to try again and again and again. So I ask you, where have you seen bias show up in your life? Where is silence easier than truth? Where is love asking you to act, not perfectly, but faithfully? We don't need all the answers to begin. We just need to begin. We need to listen more deeply to the people who have been speaking for generations. We need to remember that solidarity is not a moment, it is a practice. We need to know that calling someone in is often harder than calling them out, but it is also more healing. And we need to remember that love, real, radical love, is not polite, it is fierce, it is disruptive, and it is holy. So today, may we rededicate ourselves not to just believing in love, but to becoming love in action. May we be the ones who interrupt hate with compassion. May we be the ones who answer fear with courage. May we be the ones who choose to care radically, repeatedly, and without apology. Because this world doesn't need less injustice. It needs more love and motion. It needs your voice. It needs your courage. It needs your willingness to stand up, not someday, but now. This work will not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. Because we are not alone. We are held in a legacy of people who have walked this road before us, ancestors of justice, prophets of possibility, everyday saints who dared to say, love is worth it. So let us join them. Let us walk forward together, hands open, hearts ready, and spirits grounded in the deepest truth of all, that we belong to one another. And love, real, living, breathing love, requires us to act like it. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so.